Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. Wall Street Journal warns, don't count on big rate cuts from the Fed next year. The Wall Street Journal is sending a wake-up call to investors, don't get your hopes too high for Fed rate cuts in 2025. This caught a lot of attention because yesterday's inflation report for November came in exactly as expected. Wall Street is now confident the Federal Reserve will announce a 25 basis point rate cut next week, and that's a pretty sure bet. But here's the thing about markets, they're always looking ahead, trying to figure out the next big risk. And the biggest question looming over Wall Street is this: what's the Fed's game plan for interest rates next year? There's a golden rule on Wall Street: never fight the Federation. Betting against them has a way of wrecking portfolios, so figuring out their next move is a top priority. The Wall Street Journal article points out that investors may be too optimistic about next year's rate cuts. Sure, there's talk about the Fed possibly cutting rates by as much as 100 basis points in one go and then hitting pause, but don't count on it. Even with Wednesday's inflation data showing November's numbers were right on target, it's not stopping the Fed from likely cutting rates at its December meeting. In fact, CME Group's survey shows a whopping 96% of traders are convinced we'll see that 25 basis point cut next week. Now, looking ahead to 2025, the common belief on Wall Street is that we might see 2 or 3 more cuts, each by 25 basis points. But how likely is that? As of today, only 30% of traders feel confident about multiple cuts next year. That leaves most investors cautious. No one's going all in on predictions about the Fed's pace or strategy. So why is the Wall Street Journal throwing out the idea that the Fed might stop cutting entirely after this December? Their argument centers on Trump's economic policies. Measures like tax cuts, cracking down on illegal immigration, and imposing new tariffs could drive inflation higher. Even Trump himself recently admitted in an interview that he can't promise to keep prices from rising, saying inflation is out of my hands. This sends a message to both Wall Street and the Fed: Trump may be okay with letting inflation tick up. If that happens, further rate cuts could backfire, pushing inflation even higher. The WSJ's conclusion? Don't count on smooth, consistent rate cuts early next year. In fact, there's a real chance this December's cut could be the last for a while. This article matters because it brings some hard facts and logic to the table. If the Fed really pumps the brakes on rate cuts, it could put a damper on the markets heading into 2025. For anyone wrapping up their investment plans for the year or mapping out their financial strategies for next, this is a development worth paying close attention to. The second piece of important news to share with the internet, we come together to learn about 3 of the latest news about Trump. First up, a report from the Wall Street Journal sheds light on Trump's recent comments while in Europe, discussing his stance on Ukraine. The headline reads, "Trump to Europe, overseeing a Ukraine ceasefire would be your job," which really highlights how his approach to the issue has evolved. Yesterday, I shared with you an interview where Trump talked about using US aid to Ukraine as leverage to force Russia into ceasefire talks. This is somewhat different from the narrative that's often pushed by Trump's critics, who claim he's more sympathetic to Russia or wants to stop aid altogether. Trump has consistently said that the US aid to Ukraine is necessary. Without it, Russia won't negotiate. But what's interesting is that, in this latest Wall Street Journal piece, we get a deeper dive into Trump's thinking on the matter. During a recent trip to Paris for the reopening of Notre Dame de Paris, Trump met with European leaders to discuss Ukraine. Unsurprisingly, his stance on Ukraine was top of mind for the Europeans. After all, Trump has repeatedly claimed that he could resolve the Ukraine issue in a single day if he were president again. So, what did Trump tell them? According to the Wall Street Journal, he made it clear that while he does not support Ukraine joining NATO, his goal is to push for a ceasefire agreement. Trump also emphasized that, regardless of the outcome of those negotiations, Ukraine would still be heavily armed and well-equipped. This is key because it shows that Trump isn't backing down on supporting Ukraine militarily, even if a ceasefire deal doesn't happen immediately. It supports the idea that the US and NATO will continue to bolster Ukraine's defenses, despite the political challenges. Next, Trump made an interesting point about Europe's role in the conflict. He told the Europeans that they should take the lead in defending and supporting Ukraine. He specifically said that European troops should be deployed to Ukraine to monitor any potential ceasefire. While he didn't rule out the US contributing financially, Trump was clear that he didn't want American troops on the ground in Ukraine. This emphasizes his belief that Europe should take ownership of the situation, rather than relying too heavily on the US. Another major aspect of Trump's strategy involves China. According to sources at the meeting, Trump urged European countries to pressure China to stop supporting Russia. He even discussed potential joint sanctions against China, including raising tariffs on Chinese goods as a way to force Beijing's hand. This mirrors the Biden administration's approach, but with a more specific focus on trade sanctions as leverage. Lastly, Trump reiterated his desire to end the war quickly, although his team has yet to formalize a clear plan. His close advisors are reportedly working on proposals, and further talks with European allies and even Putin himself could shape the next steps. It's a shift from Trump's earlier, more impulsive rhetoric about ending the war on day one, and shows a more calculated, realistic approach to the complex situation. What stands out here is that Trump's approach to the Ukraine issue is becoming more pragmatic. He's no longer speaking in absolutes or overselling a quick resolution, as he might have done during his campaign. Instead, he seems to acknowledge the reality of the situation, Russia's resistance, Europe's reliance on the US, and China's role in prolonging the conflict. This evolution in his thinking could have a big impact on the future of Ukraine's peace process. It's still unclear whether Trump can actually resolve the conflict, but his more nuanced approach seems like a step toward a more feasible solution. We'll have to keep a close eye on how his plans develop moving forward. The second major news story about Trump is from Bloomberg. Lara Trump's political prize beckons with Florida Senate vacancy, and it's getting a lot of attention in US political circles today. Why? Because Donald Trump is reportedly eyeing his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, to fill Marco Rubio's vacant Senate seat in Florida after Rubio was selected as Secretary of State. Here's the situation: Rubio's Senate seat is now open, and according to Florida law, Governor Ron DeSantis will need to appoint someone to temporarily fill that spot. However, this is only a stopgap measure because a special election will be held in 2026 to officially elect Rubio's replacement. The person who wins in 2026 will only serve until 2028, when the seat will be up for re-election again. So, what does all this mean for Laura Trump? Well, Bloomberg reports that despite Laura never holding or running for a public office before, her family ties put her in a strong position to be considered for the seat. Her role as co-chair of the Republican National Committee since March has shown that she's not only a popular figure but also a strong fundraiser, two qualities that make her a serious contender in the eyes of political insiders. But here's where it gets tricky. While Laura may have the backing of the Trump family, the question remains whether Governor DeSantis will make the bold move of appointing her. According to Bloomberg, this could be a very tough decision for DeSantis, as there is already significant public support in Florida for other candidates. Florida's political establishment has been pushing for names like Chief of Staff Ismael, Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Núñez, and former Speaker of the House Jose Oliva to take the seat. All of them are seen as more politically suitable for the role in the eyes of many Floridians. If DeSantis goes ahead and picks Laura Trump, it could backfire politically. It might damage his standing within the state and hurt his chances in a future presidential bid, as it could be seen as political cronyism, especially in a state where independent voters are key. While Trump's influence on DeSantis is strong, the governor could face significant backlash for this decision, especially if it doesn't align with what the voters want. Bloomberg also draws a parallel to past political dynasties, pointing out that Ronald Reagan did something similar with his daughter Maureen Reagan, who became co-chair of the RNC in 1987. So, while it's not without precedent, the question now is whether DeSantis will follow through on what seems like a natural choice, one that could create complications for him down the road. In the end, whether or not Laura Trump becomes Florida's next senator will be something to watch closely. It's a story that sparked plenty of debate and is now a key political issue in the state. The clock is ticking as the pressure mounts on DeSantis to make a decision. The third message about Trump is Trump Organization's global plans. Eric Trump speaks on expanding the family empire. As Donald Trump gears up for a potential return to the White House, the focus has shifted to the Trump Organization, his sprawling business empire. In a recent Bloomberg exclusive, Eric Trump, Donald Trump's younger son, outlined the future of the family business and its ambitious global expansion plans. The Trump family's role in business and politics. During Trump's first term as president, his daughter Ivanka Trump joined the White House staff, leaving the Trump Organization under the management of his two sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. Over time, however, Donald Jr. has leaned more into politics, taking leadership roles in conservative think tanks and even considering a run for New York City mayor, a plan his father ultimately vetoed, urging him to stay focused on family matters. With Donald Jr.'s increasing political involvement, Eric Trump has taken a more central role in steering the Trump Organization. Meanwhile, his wife, Lara Trump, has emerged as a political figure herself, potentially stepping into a Florida Senate seat. Global expansion under Eric Trump. In the interview with Bloomberg, Eric revealed grand plans for the Trump Organization, emphasizing its focus on international real estate development. Among the highlights, Europe, Vietnam, and India will see new Trump-branded developments. Saudi Arabia will host a new Trump golf course, building on the family's close ties to the region. In Israel, plans are underway for a signature Trump-branded tower, though details remain under wraps. Eric was quick to clarify the independence of these projects from his father's political influence. "I'm committed to protecting the company from any connection to the White House or my father's administration," he stated. Trump Organization operates independently of Washington, D.C. A focus on the Middle East. Eric recently conducted a whirlwind tour of the Middle East, visiting Saudi Arabia to inspect the design of a new Trump Tower in Riyadh and speaking at a cryptocurrency conference. He described the Gulf region as one of the hottest real estate markets globally, noting the tremendous opportunities it offers developers. "The Gulf is a dream for developers, they encourage you to think bigger than you ever imagined," Eric said, highlighting the region's rapid growth and appetite for the Trump brand. Exclusions and future potential. When asked about potential ventures in politically sensitive regions like China and Russia, Eric offered a measured response. He acknowledged the challenges posed by macroeconomic and geopolitical factors, stating that expansion in these countries is unlikely for now. Still, his remarks left the door open for future possibilities. Reassurances amid political scrutiny. Eric emphasized that all new projects are partnerships with local businesses, not governments, distancing the Trump Organization from any direct political entanglements. He was adamant that the company's operations remain separate from his father's political career, addressing growing public curiosity about how the family balances its political and business interests. Vietnam joins the list. Notably, Vietnam emerged as a surprising addition to the Trump Organization's plans. Eric praised the country's potential, suggesting it has positioned itself strategically to capitalize on global investment. This latest report sheds light on the Trump family's ability to navigate the intersections of politics and business. While Donald Trump's political career continues to dominate headlines, Eric Trump's efforts to expand the family empire into international markets reveal another dimension of the Trump legacy, one that seeks to thrive in the world's most dynamic economies. Next, let's focus on ISIS-K, the rising threat of Afghanistan's deadly extremist group. The global spotlight is back on ISIS-K, the Afghan offshoot of the Islamic State, following its brazen assassination of an Afghan minister in a government office in Kabul. This latest attack has reignited international concern about the resurgence of extremism in the region, even as other terrorist factions have faced significant setbacks. A shifting landscape of extremism. With Iran's influence diminished, Lebanon's Hezbollah severely weakened, and Syria's Bashar al-Assad deposed, some observers had hoped for greater stability in the region. However, two pressing questions now dominate the discourse. Will Syria's fragile peace hold? A fractured transitional government faces immense challenges in managing the country's deeply rooted sectarian divides. Failure to maintain stability could reignite civil war, threatening the broader security of the Middle East. Can ISIS-K be contained in Afghanistan? ISIS-K has emerged as a uniquely dangerous entity. Unlike other extremist groups, its operations span continents, with a track record of targeting both Western and non-Western powers. A string of high-profile attacks. ISIS-K has claimed responsibility for some of the deadliest terrorist attacks in recent years, cementing its reputation as a global threat. In Iran, earlier this year, the group orchestrated a devastating attack during a memorial for General Qasem Soleimani, marking one of Iran's worst terror incidents in history. In Russia, Moscow suffered its most severe terrorist attacks in a decade, with ISIS-K behind both incidents. In Pakistan, Chinese engineers and aid workers have been repeatedly targeted, highlighting the group's focus on attacking major powers. In Afghanistan, The deadly assault on US forces during their withdrawal from Kabul's airport in 2021 was also the work of ISIS-K. What sets ISIS-K apart is its indiscriminate approach, targeting powerful nations regardless of their geopolitical alliances. Why ISIS-K commands attention? A recent Bloomberg report sheds light on the reasons behind the group's growing influence. Ideological appeal. As a hardline fundamentalist movement, ISIS-K advocates for a unified global Islamic state. This vision resonates strongly with certain factions within the Islamic world, giving the group a unique ability to attract recruits and sympathizers. Tensions with the Taliban. ISIS-K has positioned itself as a rival to the Taliban, accusing it of betraying Islamic principles by negotiating with the US. This narrative has gained traction among disillusioned Afghan citizens, helping the group expand its influence in the region. Expanding territory. Despite efforts by the Taliban to suppress it, ISIS-K continues to grow its foothold in Afghanistan, leveraging grassroots support to bolster its operations. The global implications. As the group strengthens its base in Afghanistan, fears are mounting that it could become a springboard for further international attacks. With its ability to target nations across the geopolitical spectrum, ISIS-K represents a new, unpredictable challenge for global security. A looming challenge. Even as the international community focuses on resolving Syria's civil war, the rise of ISIS-K underscores the enduring instability in the region. The group's ability to exploit local grievances, mobilize global followers, and execute high-profile attacks signals a growing threat that could redefine the global fight against terrorism. The resurgence of ISIS-K raises urgent questions about how nations can collectively address the evolving landscape of extremism while ensuring stability in both the Middle East and beyond. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.